temple architecture. Under the temple architecture, we have studied about the broad features of the temple architecture. Then we proceeded with Nagara style of temple architecture, that is the North Indian style of temple architecture. Then we studied the Dravida style of temple architecture. Today, we are going to proceed with the next form of temple architecture, that is Vesara style of temple architecture. All right. So first of all, please anyone tell me, is the PPT visible and is my voice clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Chalo, thank you. Yeah. So let's proceed. Now, when we talk about Vesara temple architecture, we are under the impression that this particular type of temple architecture developed under Chalukyas of Badami. Okay. But then no, there is a gradual process of evolution. Okay. So in today's session, we are going to understand, first of all, the first important question, that is evolution of temple architecture in Deccan. Fine. So in the previous sessions, we studied evolution of temple architecture in North India, that is the Nagara wala. Then we studied the evolution of temple architecture in South India, that is the Dravida style. Now we are going to today in this lecture, the first topic which we are going to address is evolution of temple architecture in Deccan. Now, when I say Deccan, we are broadly referring to the Deccan Plateau region. Okay, so when I say Deccan Plateau region, we are referring to the areas of broadly the areas of Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so all these areas are the areas which are referred to as the areas of Deccan. So evolution of temple architecture in Deccan, this is the first question which we need to address. Now, this evolution went under 5 broad phases. So the phase 1 is the phase under Ishakwakus. So Ishakwakus, so development of the temple architecture in Deccan, it started under Ishakwakus in the Andhra region, Andhra Pradesh region, and this started from 3rd century CE onwards and it went around 4th century CE. Then we directly come to the phase 2. Phase 2 is Chalukyas of Badami. So Chalukyas of Badami, this phase started from 6th century CE till 8th century CE. So this is the second phase of temple architecture in Deccan. Then the third phase is the phase under Rashtrakutas. So this phase started from 8th century CE and it lasted till 10th century CE. Then the next is phase number 4. This is the Chalukyas of Kalyani. These are also called as the later Chalukyas. And this phase started from 10th century CE onwards till 12th century CE. And the 5th phase of temple architecture is under Hoysalas, and that is the last phase, 12th century CE till 13th century CE. So if there is a question on temple architecture, especially in Deccan, so there can be a question in mains, trace the evolution of temple architecture in Deccan. You're supposed to throw light on all these 5 phases. Now, out of these 5 phases, there can be separate questions, exclusive questions on Chalukyas of Badami, Rashtrakutas, and Vesara style. So when I say Vesara style began under Chalukyas of Kalyani. So the 4th phase, phase number 4, it marks the beginning of the Vesara style, which continued under Hoysalas. Okay, so iske pehle 3 jo hai, Ishakwakus, Chalukyas of Badami, and Rashtrakutas. During this period, we do not find beginning of Vesara. These were the different temples, rock cut temples, structural temples, which evolved under phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. When I say Vesara style typically started under the phase 4 and it continued under the phase 5. So if the first question is evolution of temple architecture in Deccan, you are supposed to address all the 5 phases. And if the question is trace the features of Vesara style or trace the evolution of Vesara style, then you are going to just write about phase 4 and phase 5. Is this clear? Is there any confusion on this? Any issues with respect to this? कि Vesara style कहाँ से start होता है? It starts from phase number 4. Okay. In the subsequent slides, we are going to understand this in a better manner. Okay. So let us start with the phase number 1. So phase number 1 is the Ishakwaku phase. So this is the phase 1 of temple architecture in Deccan. So beginning of Deccan architecture took place under Ishakwakus, and this flourished in the Andhra Pradesh area. The main site of this period is Nagarjuna Konda. So Nagarjuna Konda is the main site of this period. And what are the features of these temples? Now, these temples are very small temples, small structural temples. Some temples, they just have Garbhagriha. Even Mandap is not there. And in some temples, we have Garbhagriha and mandap. So you can say that these are basically the very beginning of temple architecture in the Deccan area, and the temples are quite simple in their appearance. They are very small, just with garbhagriha or garbhagriha and mandap. No big structures evolved under Ishakwakus, and these temples belong to 3rd century CE to 4th century CE, and these temples today, they are not in intact form. Okay, so they are not existing in any perfectly intact form, and as a result we are not in a position to study these temples in detail. Okay, so this is the first phase of temple architecture in Deccan. Let's begin with the second phase. So second phase flourished under Chalukyas of Badami. So Chalukyas of Badami, the most important kings, you all know that Pulakeshin, right? Pulakeshin 1 is the founder of the Chalukyas of Badami. Then we have Kirtivarman. Pulakeshin 2 is one of the famous personalities of Chalukyas of Badami. So this temple architecture flourished from 6th century CE to 8th century CE. Which are the important sites? So important sites are Ahihol, Badami, and Pattadakkal. All these sites are in Karnataka. All the 3 sites mentioned over here are in Karnataka. Okay. Now, as I mentioned that in mains, there can be a separate question on trace the development of temple architecture under Chalukyas of Badami. So if there is a separate question of 10 marks, what are you supposed to write in this? So first, you will be giving the chronology, that it began under 6th century CE and continued up to 8th century CE. We are going to mention the 3 important sites, Aihol, Badami, Pattadakkal. Then further, we are going to study the temple architecture under Chalukyas of Badami under the different phases. So the phase 1 is the early phase. Okay, so early phase, that is just this phase started around mid of 6th century CE. Here we find the beginning of the temple architecture under Chalukya. So we have already seen in so many lectures that whenever the temple architecture we have seen, which begins, so usually the temple architecture begins with the cave temples. So here the early phase, it is marked by cave temples at Ahihol and Badami. So 2 famous sites, Ahihol and Badami. At Ahihol, we have 3 cave temples attributed to Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. So 3 cave temples at Ahihol. And at Badami, we have 4 cave temples. 3 are Hindu temples and 1 is Jain temple. We have already studied this under rock cut architecture. But if there is a separate question on Badami, Chalukyas of Badami, you are going to trace the evolution from here itself. Okay, phase 1, the early phase, development of cave temples at 2 sites, Ahihol and Badami. At Ahihol, we have 3 cave temples, and at Badami, 4 cave temples. Now, Badami cave temples, so these are very much important. So if there is a short note, at least you can elaborate the Badami cave temples. So here there are 3 Hindu temples. So cave 1, it is attributed to Lord Shiva. Shiva is Nataraj. The second one is Vishnu, Lord Vishnu as Trivikrama. The third one is again, it houses Shiva as well as Vishnu sculptures. So Narasimha is there, Harihara, that is half Shiva, half Vishnu. And the fourth one, it is attributed to Jainism. So here we have structures of Parshvanath, the 23rd Tirthankar, Mahavir, Bahubali, all these structures are there in cave number 4. So this is Ravanafadi cave at Ahihol. So this is the cave temple at Ahihol, and these are the cave temples at Badami. So this is located near Agastya Lake. So these are different caves over here. Cave 2, 3, 4 have been depicted over here at the banks of Agastya Lake. And these are the different sculptures. So we have Nataraj, that is a dancing Shiva in cave number 1. We have Vishnu seated on a giant serpent in cave number 3. So this is the phase 1 of Chalukyas of Badami. Now we are moving to the phase number 2. Now the phase number 2, it is attributed by, it is marked by structural temples. Okay, so now we have proper structural temples. We have seen the definition of structural temples, that is temples with proper structures which are required to make a temple. Like this, pillars are there, beams are there, proper mandap is there. So all this is there in this phase number 2. So these temples are at Ahihol and Badami. Now here, some temples are in Nagara style and some temples are in Dravida style. Okay, remember here also we do not have the beginning of Vesara. It is, some temples are in Nagara style of architecture, some temples are in Dravida. Nothing hybrid is there over here. So which are the important temples? So we have few important temples over here at Ahihol. Ladkhan temple is there, Meguthi Jain temple is there, Durga temple is there, and Huchi Malgudi temple is there. So these are the famous temples at Aihole. So this is the Durga temple at Aihole. This is Shiva. So originally this was a Shiva temple, but it was renamed as Ladkhan temple after a Muslim commander of Bijapur Sultanate who is said to have lived in this area. So as a result, originally it was a Shiva temple. Later on, it is known as the Ladkhan temple. Then so these were the examples of the second phase. Okay, second phase of Chalukyas, that is called as, it is marked by structural temples at Aihole and Badami, few in Nagara, few in Dravida style. Now coming to the third phase of Chalukyas of Badami. Third phase is called as the mature phase, and here the one noted site is there, that is Pattadakkal. Now Pattadakkal, it's the most important site of Chalukyas of Badami, which represents the phase number 3, mature phase, and this is UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Okay, so here there are total 10 temples. Out of the 10 temples, 4 are in the Nagara style, that is the North Indian style, and 6 temples are in the Dravida style. Okay, so 10 temples, 4 in Nagara, 6 in Dravida. Most important site because it's a UNESCO's World Heritage Site. This entire area, it is located on the west bank of Malaprabha River. Okay, so west bank of Malaprabha River, and here we have mixture of Jain temples and Hindu temples. Okay, so all these temples are there, and all the sites are protected under Indian Law and Archaeological Survey of India. So important temples, Virupaksha Temple. Now we have already seen one Virupaksha Temple under Vijayanagar. Okay, so this is the next Virupaksha Temple, which is under Chalukyas of Badami. And then we have Sangameshwara Temple. So these two temples are in the Dravida style, Virupaksha Temple and Sangameshwara Temple. And we have Papanatha Temple, that is in Nagara style. Okay, so these are the 3 important temples at Pattadakkal. So this is a Sangameshwar temple at Pattadakkal. So you can see over here, the pyramid, it's like the Dravida style, okay, of this Sangameshwar. Then we have Virupaksha temple. Okay, so these are the temples of the Chalukyas of Badami. So while writing an answer of Chalukyas on Badami, you have to write the 3 phases. Phase 1, that is the early phase. Then you will be writing the second phase, that is a structural temple ka phase, and the third phase, that is the mature phase. So this can be a separate question in mains. Now coming to the third phase of temple architecture in Deccan, that is the Rashtrakuta phase. We have already studied this Rashtrakutas, that is under the Ellora caves and all. So it is just a short glimpse of the Rashtrakutas. So Rashtrakutas, definitely they made a splendid contribution to the Indian art and architecture, and they are mainly known for building rock cut cave temples. So example of Rashtrakuta temple architecture are 2, Ellora and Elephanta. Again, on Rashtrakuta, separate question can be expected. Okay, so separate question on Rashtrakuta's contribution to the temple architecture. So Elephanta Caves. So Elephanta Caves, they are located on Elephanta Island. It's in Mumbai, which is also called as a Gharapuri Island. And this island is considered to be abode of Lord Shiva because number of caves are dedicated to Lord Shiva. So the most important one is Maheshamurti Cave. This is considered to be the most important cave. And here there are different sculptures of related to Lord Shiva. Ardhanarishwar, Nataraj Shiva, Ravan lifting Kailash mountain, Kalyan Sundara. Kalyan Sundara actually means the wedding of Shiva and Parvati. And Andhakari Murti, that is slaying of a demon of Andhakar. Okay, that is darkness. Then there are also impressive figures as Dwarapals or doorkeepers are there. And then there is a very big 7-meter high masterpiece, that is Sadashiv. Okay, now why this is called as Elephanta Caves? Because Portuguese were the first one to figure out these caves. And when they went there, the first structure which they saw over here was a big sculpture of elephants. The first view that they got was a view of an elephant, and as a result, the temple is called. This island is known as Elephanta Island, and the caves are Elephanta Caves. This is the elephant. Now it is said that British were trying to move this elephant to British Museum, but then while taking it, it was broken, and as a result, today it is kept at Jizamata Udyan. So this is that elephant that gave the name to the that caves as Elephanta Caves. Then this is Trimurti Shiva. So Shiva as Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, that is Shiva, and this is flanked by Dwarpals. Then we have Shiva bringing Ganga river to the earth. So this is called as Shiva as Gangadhar. Gangadhar means Shiva bringing river Ganga to Mother Earth. Then Shiva slaying the demon of Andhakar, darkness. Then Ardhanarishwar, Shiva depicted as a half male and half female, that is half Shiva and half Parvati. Then we have Kalyana Sundara, that is a wedding of Shiva and Parvati. Shiva is Yogeshwara, that is god of yoga. And Shiva is Nataraja, that is god of dance. And then this is Ravana shaking Mount Kailash. Okay, so these are the different sculptures which are there at Elephanta Caves. So if there is a separate question on Rashtrakutas, you are going to throw light on Elephanta Caves, you can give the examples of all these sculptures and all that can be a value addition to your answer. And second thing, you are going to throw light on Ellora Caves. So we have already studied exclusively the Ellora Caves. So Ellora Caves, we have seen the different architectural patterns which are there in Ellora Caves, and we have already studied cave number 16, that is Kailash Nath Temple, built by Krishna 1. Okay, so even that you are going to impart in this answer. So this can be a separate question in mains, evolution of temple architecture, or the contribution of Rashtrakutas to the temple architecture. So in that, you need to mention about Elephanta and Ellora Caves, and we do not find structural temples, mainly we find rock cut cave temples only. Now coming to the next important part is the last phase. Okay, so phase number 4 and phase number 5. So Chalukyas of Kalyani, that is the later Chalukyas, 10th century to 12th century AD. So this period marks the beginning of Vesara style of temple architecture. Okay, so remember this Vesara style, the hybrid style, it began under Chalukyas of Kalyani, not under Chalukyas of Badami. Okay, so there is always a misconception that the Vesara style began under them. No, this began under them, and this again represents the Karnataka. So even they were the ones who settled in the broadly in the Karnataka area only, and then it began under them and it continued under Hoysalas. Okay, so this temple architecture was further continued by Hoysalas and it attained perfection under Hoysalas. Now, what are the broad features of the Vesara style of temple architecture? Now, when we talk about the broad features of the Vesara style of temple architecture, the first one is hybrid tower. Okay, so we see that the tower is not curvilinear. So we have seen in the Nagara style, what is a defining feature of the Nagara tower? Curvilinear tower, right? We had seen that the tower goes up, it curves in, there is a amlak, that is a circular disc is there, and on the top of the disc there is a kalash. So that is a Nagara style. When we talk about the Dravida style, it's like a pyramid. And when we talk about the Vesara style, so it is not like a pyramid also, and it is not curving also. Okay, so you can see over here, like it is like a mixture. Okay, it's a hybrid of Nagara and Dravida style. Then when we talk about stellate plan, so stellate plan, it's a plan of temple architecture where the temple complex, it's in the form of star. Okay, so star like stellate plan, it's a star like plan. Then temples are usually built on a raised platform. Okay, now few of the features are of the existing ones they carried forward, and few are the newly added ones. So stellate plan, so इसके पहले हमने जितने भी temples देखे, Dravida and Nagara, we have not seen a stellate plan of temple architecture. But here, from henceforth, we see the emergence of the stellate plan, that is a star-like form. Then hybrid tower is there, temples built on high platform. And the most important thing over here, we find that multiple garbhagrihis. So there is one mandap, एक मंडप के आजू बाजू में there are multiple garbhagrihis. Okay, so that is again a very important feature of the temple Vesara style of temple architecture. That is multiple garbhagrihi, 3 or 4 garbhagriha representing a one integrated temple. Then ceilings are quite decorative over here. So decorative ceilings are being seen over here. There are moldings, carvings on the walls and the carvings on the pillars. And there are also sculptures. Okay, so decorative elements, sculptures are used for the decorative element. So these are the features of the Vesara style of temple architecture. So if there is a separate question on the features of the Vesara style of temple architecture, you are going to say that you are going to start that ki Chalukyas of Kalyani. So that phase marks the beginning of the Vesara style of temple architecture, and it further continued under Hoysalas and attained perfection under Hoysalas. Under that, you are going to write this, throw light on this broad features: hybrid tower, stellate plan, that is the star-like plan, temples being built on a very high platform, multiple garbhagrihi being seen over here, decorative ceilings are there, and we find moldings on the walls and pillars and sculptures as a decorative element. So which are the important temples of this period? So you need to state examples as a value addition for your answer. So this is a Mahadev temple at Itagiri. It is in Karnataka. Then we have Dodappa Basava temple again in Karnataka. So you can see over here the beautiful temple. The structure is quite massive. Then this is the Chennakeshwar temple at Somnath Pura. So this actually clearly depicts the star-like form. So you can see over here the star-like form of the temple complex being depicted over here, like the main temple. So this is the Chennakeshwar temple at Somnath Pura. Then there are intricate carvings over here, Vishnu with Lakshmi at Hilberd. Then we have Shiv, Parvati and Nandi carving over here. Then this is the ceiling, which is the decorative element, decorative ceiling being done over here. This is the Hoysaleswar temple. So this was built under Hoysalas. Okay, so this is the further elaboration of the Vesara style under Hoysalas. So here you can properly see over here again, it's a stellate plan being incorporated over here. Okay, so this is again the same temple, the massive temple complex you can see over here with beautiful carvings. There's a Nandi shrine over here, the separate Nandi shrine. Sculptures on the temple walls and temple pillars. Okay, so this is all about the third style of temple architecture, that is the temple architecture in Deccan and the temple Vesara style. Okay, so here two questions can be expected in names. First of all, evolution of temple architecture in Deccan, one broad question. Second question can be specific question on Vesara features, and third thing, it can be exclusive question on Chalukyas or Badami and exclusive question on Rashtrakutas. Okay, one more point I want to mention over here, I have not mentioned over here in the PPT. For prelims, that is important is Yadavas of Devgiri. Okay, so Yadava dynasty, they ruled over Devgiri, and the dynasty ruled from 12th century AD till 14th century AD. And Yadava minister Himadra, he contributed to a new style of temple architecture which is called as Hemadpanthi. Okay, so Hemadpanthi style. So just remember, Hemadpanthi style of temple architecture, it flourished under Yadavas of Devgiri, and these temples, they are mainly known for the thick walls, thick pillars, and there is no ornamentation on the walls of the temple. So we usually see that on all the temple exteriors, that is on the exterior walls of the temple, we see decorative elements. But in the Hemadpanthi style, we do not find any decorative elements on the exterior walls. Okay, on the exterior part of the walls, we do not find any decorative elements. Okay, so this is the final end of the temple architecture. So today we are going to end here only. This is a short session, and we have completed all the three forms of temple architecture. Nagara is done, Dravida is done, Vesara is done. In the upcoming session, we are going to study about the Indo-Islamic form of Indo-Islamic form of architecture. Okay, so that is, we are going to study the architecture under Delhi Sultanate, under Mughals, and also regional architecture. Fine. So any doubt in the temple architecture, whatever we have covered up to now, all the three?
No, ma'am.
Is it clear? Everything is clear?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes,
fine.
ma'am.
All right.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am.
yes, yes.
Actually, you said something about this prelims. Actually, I could not get it, ma'am. Could you please repeat, ma'am?
Okay, so for preliminary examination, there can be a separate question on for the MCQs about the this Yadavas of Devgiri. Okay, so for Yadavas of Devgiri, they contributed to a unique style of temple architecture. Only Yadavas of Devgiri, they did it. That is called as Hemadpanthi. So that you need to know. And there was a minister, Hemadra. Hemadra was the minister. He contributed to this Hemadpanthi temple architecture. And this architecture is marked by